Good evening. We'll get started tonight. Got a few things to take care of first. This meeting of the Board of Selectmen is being conducted via a hybrid method. The public may attend the select board meeting in person or may continue to participate via Zoom access. Until further notice, in-person attendees who are not vaccinated will be recommended to wear a mask. A reminder that all persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress, I can't say because we're not on channel 9. With that being said, we are here for a workshop to discuss a development off of Central Street. Just so that everyone knows how we're going to approach this. We're going to let the applicant make a presentation. The board will have the ability to ask some questions. Anyone else, whether in the audience or in the public, can ask questions. And then we will move on from there. So there will be no decision tonight. So I know that you're all very disappointed with that, but that's not going to happen. And we definitely want to just open up the door. Okay, we can give you one right now. You like that one? So, we're good at that. And let's just have a free discussion as we go through. Hopefully, any questions that come up can be answered, and we can then move on to the next process. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if we wanted to have special counsel where maybe do a little introduction to.
Sure. Well, we're probably going to introduce
40
everyone just because we got some announcements too. So if you'd like to represent us, you can get started.
I'm happy to introduce myself and jump in where you'd like me to. I'm Brian Winter from B. Tellerman and Costa, special counsel to the boards here, and we've assisted recently in some 40B work before, so we're happy to work with you on this and be as much help as we can be. I can give you, I don't know what order you'd like. I imagine you'd like to hear more about the project.
Unless there's some setup that you want to discuss before they get going.
Brian, the only thing I was thinking, do you want to define what the friendly voting fee is versus the voting fee?
I'll get into that.
Okay, that's all I want to make sure that that part was.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, if you think it would be helpful to sort of start off with that, Paul, maybe address it a little bit, and I can fill in the blanks. So you have sort of a couple with the information, so you kind of understand the architecture that we're working in first. Maybe that would be
Sure.
So, however you want to do it.
And if you gentlemen would introduce yourselves, so we do have some people on Zoom that looking at our lovely faces would want to know who we are. So, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Paul Cusson of Dulfit Associates. Our office is in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and we're consultant to the proposed applicant for a development that we're proposing. With me, I have the engineer, Brian Campbell to my immediate left, who is the applicant, and then we have Brian Dunn, who is the engineer. And we have Justin Williams, who is working with Brian, working on this particular development. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to meet tonight and just discuss what we're thinking about. And one of the things that we're talking about is a property located at 188 Central Street, which is presently owned by Brian. And it's an existing apartment complex, and it has an existing in the front of the building and in the front of the lot, rather. It has two triplex units, and in the back of that, it has one building containing 8 units. They're all 2-bedroom units. So the thought was, Brian approached us about trying to create additional apartments on the same parcel. And we talked about the best way to try to approach that. And based on the town's existing zoning bylaws and so forth, we felt that the only way to do this would be to permit this in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws 40B. We recently did a development for another client in Avon, Joanna Hills, and that's a different type of development, but that was permitted in accordance with 40B. And then basically on the 40B, there are 2 ways that an applicant can go about this. And one way is through the Department of Housing and Community Development's what they call their Local Initiative Program, known as LIP, which is also known as a friendly 40B. And that LIP is an application which we did a draft. What you have before you in the pamphlet is basically a draft of that application. It would be an application that's signed by the Board of Selectmen. It's their application. It gives the town and the board a lot more control over the 40B process. Once we discuss it, what the Board of Selectmen is asked to do is to sign the application, which basically says, we, the Board of Selectmen, think this is an appropriate site. We think the proposed density might be appropriate, but you're not permitting the development. You're just getting the local initiative signed, which goes to the Department of Housing and Community Development. They then will look at this application in much more detail. And if everything seems to be in order, they will issue what's called a site eligibility letter. Once we get a site eligibility letter, we would go before the Zoning Board of Appeals. You have to file a formal application under Massachusetts General Law 40B with the Zoning Board of Appeals. They are the permitting authority. They work in conjunction with many other boards through that process. The Planning Board and Conservation Commission, all other boards in town are advisory to the Zoning Board of Appeals. They ultimately make the decision. And Board of Selectmen is still involved in that process through the Zoning Board of Appeals. So what we're that's one way of doing it, and it's known as, again, as a friendly 40B. Another process is, which we did in Joanna Hills, is under the Mass Housing Finance Agency. Mass Housing is under the NEF, New England Fund Program. It can also be somewhat friendly, but the Board of Selectmen is not directly involved as they would be under this program we're proposing. The Board of Selectmen, so what we would do is we would submit a book similar to this to Mass Housing, asking them for approval of a site eligibility letter. The Board of Selectmen get a copy of that application, and Mass Housing will ask the Board of Selectmen for any comments they may have, and you can solicit comments from other boards to submit any comments the town may have to Mass Housing to issue a site eligibility letter. There again, with that letter, we would then apply same process through the Zoning Board of Appeals. They ultimately will make a decision based on information in here during the hearing process and input they may get from other boards. We prefer to do it under the LIP program. And what we're proposing here is we're proposing some apartments. We're proposing a total of an additional. We have three buildings. We have one built. We have a total of it's breaking down into a number of bedrooms. We have Mass Housing and DAC requires in a development, we're proposing 36 additional units. Of those 36 additional units, 4 units, 10% would be 3 bedrooms. And then we have 14 2-bedrooms, and we would have 14 1-bedrooms. Of those, 25% of each type would be set aside as affordable. Through this process, the town can say, we want the affordable units for town local preference for those affordable units through what we will later on have a lottery process. The total number of bedrooms, including the existing and proposed, would be all permitted through the Board of Health in accordance to Title V. And would be a system, and Brian can get into that, but will be a system or a series of little systems that does not exceed 10,000 gallons in total sewage flow, which is then allowed to be permitted by the local board of health. And I think our total bedroom flow is, I think it's 88 bedrooms is what our flow is. With that, in your booklet, we can go over the architecturals. We've submitted some architectural plans. We've included and the site is presently, we have to, Brian, I'll get into it. We have to have site control. And Brian owns the site under A and B Realty, so we have the site control. The architectural plans would be in tab 5. And what we showed so
The architecture plans were included in our set, right? We have, I think so. All
That's what I want.
right, so come down further down the back, Mr. Eames. You may not be in that set.
Because I'm not sharing the screen, so no one can see it at home.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's no question beyond this.
So what, you don't have, right? Yeah, so what we have is in the tab 5, the buildings are 2-story. We're not asking for any waivers as to the height. And if you look at where it talks just before the first elevation, where it talks about the affordable distribution, so we're locating the affordable units. I think I've lost some books. Okay, tab 5. The first set of plans will be Brian's plans, which are engineering. Turn the yellow sheet. Yeah, then you get the affordable distribution plan.
Yeah.
So those are the buildings that we're proposing. And we're proposing that the affordables be distributed throughout the development. And there again, of the 3-bedroom units, we have one affordable, a total of 4 3-bedrooms, and then we have 16 2-bedrooms. 16 2-bedrooms, of which 4 would be affordable, and 16 1-bedrooms, of which 4 would be affordable. And so we have 2 rates and 1 thing. All right, we have the first building. The first building is an 8-unit building, and we've identified which unit, in addition to the plan that said affordable distribution, we also show it on the floor plan. And you can see that on sheet A2, there's affordable in the left-hand corner. And we also have the square footages of each unit identified on that particular plan. So for example, that 2-bedroom is 1,170 square feet, which is a good size 2-bedroom. And then we have
isn't that a 3-bedroom? Am I looking at the wrong plan?
I'm sorry, no, you're looking at the right plan. That's a 3-bedroom is 1,170 square feet. That's a 3-bedroom in the left-hand corner. And then in the lower left-hand corner, we have a 1-bedroom. And across the hall, we have 2 2s, a 2-bedroom one.
Now, maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. This one I showed was 3-bedroom and 3 2-bedrooms. You just said there's the bottom left hand.
No, the unit number
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry, my mistake. It said bedroom number 2.
Yeah,
But it's a one-bedroom unit.
Unit
Okay.
number one is a one bedroom.
Okay,
Okay, unit number two is a two bedroom. Unit number three is a bedroom and designated as affordable.
Yeah.
And unit number four is a two bedroom.
Yeah.
Both two bedrooms are 996 square feet. That's the living area, does not include the common area of the stairways. And, you know, the second, we don't necessarily have to go through each plan unless you want to. The second floor is unit number 5. Okay, there again is a one bedroom that's designated as affordable. And unit number 6 would be the two bedroom, unit number 7 would be the 3, and unit number 8 would be a two bedroom. So and then we also have, you see the elevations of what we're proposing. It's the hip roof colonial style buildings.
That's similar to the buildings that are there now?
I'm sorry?
Is the proposed building similar to the buildings you have now, style wise?
Style-wise, except for the hips on each side. Each point.
We can, I don't know if you're familiar with the site, we can get you some photos as well of the existing property. Brian will have that up on the screen as far as where they're located on the site.
These are a little smaller. Not as big as the
So what we're, there again, what we're asking is, you know, and we have all the proposed, right now, what the proposed rents would be on the affordables. And we also have provided a very preliminary waiver list. These would be some of the waivers that we will be asking for from the zoning board of appeals, not from the board of selectmen. Other than those being waived, we have to comply with all the local rules and regulations of the town. So once we have discussion as to how you want to proceed, there is an application in tab 1 that would be the application that would actually go to Department of Housing and Community Development under the local initiative program. And it's a pretty standard application. There's nothing really exorbitant about it. It kind of outlines what I just discussed as the total number of units, the size of the units, the architecturals. So this basically what you see here is what would be presented to the DHCD. So we can stop here and answer any questions you may have, unless you want us to go right into the site itself and what we're proposing from an engineering point of view.
Why don't we stop here and have some comments from the?
Yeah, just gonna offer, if I could jump in here for a little bit, and just sort of talk about process a little bit, because it looks like we're about to dive into some of the more substantive aspects. But I agree with what Mr. Gussie just said in terms of the process and what the different avenues look like. A couple of things I just wanted to add, and that's that he mentioned that there's ultimately an approval that you give for the application to sign on. Really what the regulations require is a letter of support. And how you get to that letter of support is you have this conversation, the next one and the next one, sort of work about what kind of concept the board is comfortable with. And ultimately what we suggest is you negotiate and sign with them a land development agreement. So you know that they're going to act in conformity with this concept that you guys have negotiated. And that's what gives rise to your letter of support. We'll support this project because I like it to look like this. So you get that level of control, and that's not something you would normally get in a regular 40B application and go directly to the ZBA. So you get a great deal of oversight and control that you normally wouldn't have in terms of what's coming to your community, how it's going to look, how it's designed. So you get to have those conversations. Now, once it leaves here, that development agreement, with the contract, it still stands in its place, but it doesn't supersede any of the jurisdiction of zoning rules. They still have to go there. So you're not tainting that process or changing that process. So you start here with a concept, it goes to the zoning board, it gets vetted even more thoroughly. And maybe some tweaks come out of that, maybe some questions come out of that. And we harmonize the development agreement that you guys discussed and whatever concerns come out of that process. And you get hopefully a better result for everybody. So we tend to like these because you get that element of control. And by the way, if I'm not suggesting anything will go sideways, but if it does go sideways, well, then you pull your letter of support and the whole thing stops, right? So you have pretty good teeth in that as well. And I'm not suggesting any of that would happen, but that's one of the rules you play. And applicants often like it too, because a lot of the legwork is done already. They already know they have the support of the select. And a lot of this vetting that often occurs when they first approach the ZBA has already occurred. So they gain a lot on the front end and they gain a lot in the middle too when they're at the ZBA because some of the vetting has already taken place. So those two parts of the process get a little bit truncated, which is a benefit for them because if they go directly to DHCD and Mass Housing, it can be a longer process for that initial eligibility. And then of course, when they arrive at the ZBA, we're really seeing it for the first time in its full form, its full sort of projected form.
Except they would have seen the application some.
Right. But at this part, we're having these meetings, which wouldn't have happened in the other process. That's a little bit more process than you would get otherwise. So that's some of the value you get from this one.
And you mentioned, and just to clarify, so there's, by doing friendly 40B, by coming to the Board of Selectmen, we're not taking any authority away from the zoning board at this point. Because obviously they're the grant, the authority for granting the permit at this point. We're not taking any of that authority away from them.
Correct. You're not tying their hands in any. They still have jurisdiction over the permit itself. And they'll know, what transpired and they'll be aware of it, but it doesn't tie their hands in. If there's an inconsistency, we work it out, come back. It's not, doesn't control their process.
Mm-hmm. And do you agree with the process as laid by Mr. Customs?
As he's described it?
Yes.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think that's.
We've had good luck on these type of applications.
And again, that's Mr. Custis said, that's the friendly part.
Sure.
They can come to your town anyway. And often you're faced with an applicant or a project that's kind of thrust upon you. This is a chance for you to be in the kitchen, so to speak.
Any other questions from anyone? None?
Brian, can you we do have a housing production plan that's been approved by the state. Can you maybe just put any sort of indication of what that might play if something came up with it? In terms of any sort of 40B process going forward? I know there are some things where some towns will have a housing production plan approved and there's a little more leeway in.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it, but I know you mentioned that.
The housing production plan that has been sometimes there's a conflict even within that housing production plan.
Yep.
Not unusual to have conflicts, but when I say conflicts, I mean there's a conflict sometimes about the need for certain housing and different kinds of things. So what happens is that once a town has it approved, the next step would be to get a certified housing production plan. And once you get a certified housing production plan, you can tell the next guy, the next 40B applicant, you have a lot more control. And depending on how many units you have approved, there could be a 2-year waiting list, or waiting period, not list, but waiting period by which they could submit. So it's housing production plan is a good thing, but you want to head towards the certified.
Is that correct? It's not certified yet.
By the
It's
state,
been approved, but not certified. Is that?
The only development, the only 40B development they have really that would fall in the not certified would be Joanna Hills.
Right.
yeah, I don't know if that's been certified. I mean, I know the housing's been approved by the state. I'll look at.
But it's gonna be so many units of housing to be certified, right?
Yeah.
So once you reach that threshold. then you certify.
And we'd have to take a look at it, maybe be an inconsistency.
Yeah.
Take a look.
But there's no inconsistency with what we're doing.
Right.
It just,
And these units count.
Yeah.
So to the extent that was a concern. I think I heard another question about the fact that there's an existing facility in the site. That doesn't really create any conflict or problems with this. They can still permit it through this process, even though it's sort of an adjunct to an existing facility.
Question from town council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, you had mentioned that, with this process, the Board of Selectmen's sort of indication. Can this friendly 40B turn into a regular 40B based on this application?
it is a regular.
Yeah, it is, because I mean, they're still going to the zoning board and they're filing their application, they're going through that process one way or another. So that is gonna happen, it will be the same thing. That would happen even if we weren't doing the LRP program.
It's all permitted. In other words, for the general audience, the reason we're even here is that if a town does not have 10% of its housing stock as affordable, designated affordable on DHCD's subsidized housing inventory list, an applicant can come before the town and go through the 40B process. And as I said before, what we're doing, there are basically two processes. One is through the LIP program, and the other one is through Mass Housing or Mass Housing Partnership. So it's still under the 40B statute. What we're doing.
I kind of took your question a little bit differently, which is if for some reason the road gets a little bumpy here, can they just withdraw and then go through the regular?
Correct.
40B? I think that's what you were driving. at.
Exactly.
Okay.
So maybe you want to address that. I mean, my impression would be yes, as a legal matter, but no, because they've already invested so much time and resources into this process. Yeah, I think it would have to be something.
We're gonna know early on how this is gonna go, I think. The developer is committed to do this type of housing. Is fully committed to work with the town on a local process. If that goes sideways, I don't know what we would do, but we do have the avenue to go to Mass Housing under the NEF program.
They still have the legal right to do that. But again, I mean, they're here and they're committing their resources to this, so depending on how far down this road we get, there's an opportunity cost associated with that, for them to pull that back and then apply through the regular channel. There's a large cost associated with that time and resources already committed. So, and again, this process is meant to have a certain amount of reciprocity. You'll ask questions and you'll ask them to look at certain changes or examine certain things, and they'll come back to you and tell you what they think. So if that is going well, then that could be fruitful. We need a roadblock, we'll talk about it then, but I don't know.
Any other questions, comments? Would you like to get into some details?
Yeah, I think I'll turn it over to Brian and Justin to discuss a little bit on the site.
Sorry, Bob, did you have any questions before we move on?
Yes.
Please.
Pardon me,
It's behind the pole.
if I may, it sounds to me, I'd like to just, this could be corrected if it's, initially, this friendly process gives the developer a leg up or an assist to get the preliminary approval for the project from the state. In the long run, it may afford the town some advantage with future development. Is that accurate?
I don't know about future development, but generally, that's correct.
Well,
When you say
Get the
future,
percentages.
you inferred that if the town went forward with this friendly procedure and then developed a housing production plan, that it would give them more clout in the future with similar development. Is that accurate or not accurate?
I think that's fairly accurate, depending on how much, yes.
Thank you. So but even through this process, the Board of Appeals maintains the same comprehensive permit issuing procedures?
Exactly the same. There's nothing taken away from their permitting authority or the questioning or anything like that. Typically, a zoning board would certainly listen to, what was discussed. And
They can look for mitigation, et cetera.
They have that they're within their own power to do whatever they think is appropriate.
Of the affordable units proposed in this project, are any of those accessible?
Yes,
Are the accessible units also available in the market rate units?
yes.
And just to enlighten me and maybe anybody else who listens, what today is the current income limit for an affordable family of four?
I'd have to double check that, but it's about for a family of four, it's close to $90,000. Avon is Avon is in the Brockton SA area. I believe so. So it'd be about 85,000.
About $85,000 is the affordable limit for a family of four.
Correct.
Wow.
And that's
No, I think that's pertinent to, and I know you were present in the previous development schemes we discussed for Joanna Hills. And people are misguided, I guess, as to what affordable is. And an $85,000 limit is an average person's salary.
no, we don't. I hear where you're coming from, and I don't necessarily disagree. But however, we don't determine that. What happens is that the federal government.
No, I understand where it comes from.
Okay.
It's just that what the number amounts to is a lot more than most people think it is.
Yeah, and a lot of people come to me and they say, this is a low income housing development. I say, no, it's not.
No, it's not by any means.
It's the policeman, it's the fireman, it's the, the average worker, if you will.
I know all too well, thank you.
Okay.
And just for clarification, if I look in the affordable housing lottery information, there's a page in here that talks about maximum income and minimum income. Is that the number that you were referring to?
Correct.
So according to this chart, a family of four is 79,900.
80,000. That's about
Yeah.
good.
So
And that
Pretty well say,
That changes depending on,
that changes every spring, April, May, March, usually in the spring. The federal government comes out with new numbers. It could go up or down. Lately, it's been going up. And it's the same thing. I mean, I don't know at Joanna Hills what the single family homes there are going to be, but they're going to be probably in the mid threes. Maybe.
Yeah,
You said 349, 349.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but we came up with.
I asked that question because I'm somewhat familiar with it. And I was totally aware that the people in the community are misconceiving what affordable is. And it's by no means low income.
That's
By no means.
that's true. That's true. But looking at the other side, what's happening is someone who is and has an income of $80,000 a year, they can't buy a house here because they're all $500,000, $600,000.
I know that too.
So it's it's
Yeah.
So I hear you, and I don't
Yeah.
I don't disagree with it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
there was one question by someone on here. The street address is at 188?
Yes.
So it's 188 Central, Mr. Jordan, and how much acreage is the land?
6.46 acres total. There's 5.38 acres of uplands and 1.08 acres of wetlands.
Mr. Jordan, does that answer your question, or do you have any other questions before we go on? You're on mute. You're on mute, Rick.
Yes, it does answer my question. Thanks. I did have a couple more. How many acres are involved?
6.4. What you said?
Yeah, the total area of acreage through the chair, through Mr. Rose, is 6.46 acres of total area.
Just doing a little math, I mean, the town, if the town were to try to meet its affordable goal, if we have, I don't know, 1,700 units in the town roughly, 10% would be 170 affordable units. This adds 9 to our inventory, and I suppose Joanna Hill adds 15 or 20 to our inventory. I don't know if those numbers are roughly correct. I was just doing some amateur calculating.
That's incorrect.
Incorrect.
And I'll explain why. You're correct on Joanna Hills, because Joanna Hills is what they call for sale housing. So you only count towards the 10% goal of the units that are considered affordable. In the case of an apartment complex, even though we've designated 9 units as affordable, all of the units in an apartment complex count towards the goal. So we're proposing 36 units, so all 36 count towards the 10%.
Currently, we need about 110 or so units of housing to meet our 10% prior to Joanna. So add that up, where would be at currently, yeah, both projects if they got fully done.
Does the existing project number of units fall in line now to add into the?
No, the
No.
existing number of units, which there are 14 existing units. There's no affordable component within those units.
Okay.
We're only counting them as part of the number of bedrooms for the sewer flow for the septic system design.
Okay, very good. Chairman of the Board of Appeals stepped in. Is there any questions? They're gonna go into detail a little bit on the development now. I don't know if you had any comment.
I was just gonna listen to see.
Okay, very good. No other questions? You have the floor again.
What I'd like to do is turn it over to Brian so we can start discussing the development itself, what's presently existing, where we're proposing the additional units, how the sewage is going to work, and all of the other engineering things about the site, the curbing, sidewalks, all of that sort of things. Brian, I'll just.
Mr. Rose, we're gonna have Justin Williams from my office do a brief presentation on our design. He's been working diligently on these plans. And then I can answer any other questions.
Did you make him work on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday last week?
You know what? I only gave Friday off. Thursday, they had to work. Actually, we were pretty good. We give 13 holidays where, I give Christmas Eve off. I'm not like a 600 person firm. I kind of treat everybody fairly. So at least I try to. Hopefully Justin.
We don't get confirmation from Justin on that, so we'll just let it go.
Blink twice.
Yeah, no,
So we're sharing the screen. So.
Okay.
So this is the existing condition.
you can go up to. Thanks.
Either that, you bring your red laser.
Next time we'll bring the laser.
You don't have that.
Unless they have it with me.
Existing in the front is 2 buildings, each with 3 units, 1 3-bedroom, 2 bedrooms and a single bedroom exists, that's existing. And then in the rear is a 2-story 8-unit, each with 2 bedrooms, that was built in recent years and you'll see the septic system locations. We do have wetlands on the site in 3 locations. That's one that you can kind of see in the back here and off to the side. And then a portion of the site is within Mass DEP Zone B, which is associated with the Brockton Reservoir. no real environmental impacts from what we're proposing on that. According to Mass DEP standards.
And then Jeff,
Most of the lot from what you see here is what's not being used is wooded currently. And that's where the development will take place mostly for the 40B that we're proposing.
and then Mr. Enos, if you could pan up a little bit to the bottom part of the lot, you can see that the abutter is the town of Stoughton, and then after that is Route 24.
Justin, if you could just talk about the existing access, the driveway, and then then we can tie that together later.
So existing ones out there now is 3 curb cuts. There was the Central Street was just repaved by the town, and during that time we pre-planned and got approval to add in the access drive for the development. And then there's 2 existing that connect to parking lots. You'll see on the proposed that we're proposing to loop it.
You think of putting a water service in it before we paved it? There's a 5-year moratorium.
Yes.
Okay?
That was all negotiated. We knew what was going on and we know the rules regarding what can be done. And so in advance and anticipation, we were able to secure the approval to put those things in.
Very good.
Brian.
Yeah, so what we did was we aligned our driveway with what was being proposed by the town and the improvements, and then also got the water line stubbed into the property. And as you can see, and Jesse can talk about this, we're looping the water line as part of this, so.
Mr. Borden, please.
Just for clarification, the 8-unit building at number 188 is fully sprinkled. There's an 8-inch water main that feeds that sprinkler system.
Yeah.
Next page.
Yep.
I think, yeah, it's an 8-inch main coming in, and then it goes to a 6-inch. And I think going into the building is 4.
It actually, the 8-inch end of the hydrant, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
You have 8 inches on your property. That's all I was trying to get across.
Is the domestic tapped off of the 8-inch coming in or a separate tap out in the main?
No, off the 8-inch.
Okay.
So this is the proposed layout. We have your access drive in that will loop and connect to the existing parking lot. As you come down, we'll have parking, outdoor parking in a mix of garages that will be sold with the units and divvied up, rented.
Big difference here. You want to sell them or you want to rent them? Which one?
Rent them.
We're not that close to Boston.
That's what I want to ask.
So in the bottom left of the site, we have the 2 proposed 8-unit buildings. Those will be your 3 bedrooms and your 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms. We don't have, as proposed to the 10 units, they will not have a basement. I'll get to that in a moment. This will be more of a slab on grade foundation, with the exception of this one, which will have rented underground under the building parking spaces for those lucky individuals. As you continue around, we come to the 10 units on the right side. Those are your mostly 2 and 1 bedroom apartment areas. The walkway and stairs in the back here are because the 10 units have basement floor units, but it's not a traditional walkout. It'll be more of a courtyard situation, and then the stairs will come up to ground level. We are proposing to fill up to the 5,000 wetland limit within, that's allowed within Mass DEP, with replication on each side of the property. That wouldn't along the Stoughton line, which on the other side is industrial properties, and they're about 200 feet away from the property line to start with, so that shouldn't have any effect. We have our proposed septic systems for the 210 units. They'll be combined into one in the rear of those buildings, and then the 8 units will have their own separate that follow. Any questions?
You want to go to the next page?
Before we do that, can you just explain on the wetlands that the wetland line has been redelineated and approved?
This is this was the original wetland line that was approved in the original application that Mr. Campbell put together in regards to the other existing buildings that are on site. We would still have to go to Conservation Commission as part of our notice of intent to approve those wetland lines. But they are record information that the Conservation Commission approved at one point in time on this property. We've worked well with the Conservation Commission, and I'm sure that we will be able to address all of their concerns as it relates to the wetland.
Before we
Jeff,
go,
we'll talk about where the drainage is on the site, where we're in snow storage. I think we've got some room for that.
yeah, so we have a little bit of snow storage on the in the grassed areas. Extra snow will be trucked off site and disposed of. For drainage, we have 2 infiltration areas, actually 3. 2 in the grassed areas and 1 underneath the parking. Those will be our tank type units. Those are kind of like a milk crate in a basket, goes on the ground, fills up with water, and then we will build out and extend the proposed bioretention area that is existing on site to catch any flow that isn't caught by that. For the parking situation, we meet the current zoning bylaw standards of 2 spaces per unit with so we're proposing 36 units, and we have 74 parking spaces.
Which is a lot more parking than typical, where you have a bylaw in a town that might have apartments, usually it's like 1.5. But here we have 2.
And which that really puts us at 112 on site
112
parking
parking
spaces.
to get all together.
We can move to the next. This is the grading plan. We are proposing to raise the site by 5-ish feet, which gives us a wall here and some 3-to-1 grades in the back behind the buildings. These grades could change depending on how our soil tests go. once we get approval and into full design.
You talk a little bit about the soils, what you might know. Has there been any testing done to date?
We haven't done any new soil testing. We used the record information that was done in the previous development plans that were utilized for seasonal high groundwater and modeling for the existing septic systems and the drainage basin that's to the right of that existing driveway coming in. So we have a good understanding of where we are in regards to the vertical separation that would be required both for the Board of Health and for the DEP's regulation on the stormwater. We also in citing these buildings and citing these drainage basins and septic systems are following the setbacks required in the Title V regulations as they relate to setback from wetlands and other things, and as well as the DEP's regulations on stormwater infiltration setbacks to wetlands.
If I may, I mean, at the LIP this level, normally these plans are substantially advanced than what normally you have at this stage. But what will happen is that if you were to approve this and we get approval from DACD, when we go to the ZBA, you may or may not be familiar with this, but what will happen is that the plans, the engineering will be reviewed by the town, an engineer that the zoning board of appeals would hire to review Brian's work. And they go back and forth on engineering issues and being sure they're both on the same page as far as what the ZBA may be looking for and what is required under the engineering, the testing, the soils, all of that.
And we did that recently on Joanna Hills Estates and worked well with the ZBA as well as with their peer review consultant. And then additionally, did extra testing that was requested by the peer review consultant. And then recently, over the last year or so, did more soil testing for all of the septic systems that are proposed out there, except for one area, the single family houses with their consultant, as well as Kathleen at the Board of Health. So we've got a good working relationship, with the peer review consultants, as well as the Board of Health, and as it relates to those soil testing. And I'm sure whatever testing that is needed, I know Mr. Campbell will make sure that we're authorized to do that testing.
We can go to the next page. It will show more of the utilities and that water line that we were talking about earlier. So existing on site is the 8-inch water line that ends at the hydrant over here. And then we have the tap that's existing off of Central Street, which we're proposing to loop through this site in the back here. And that will likely be a 6 or an 8-inch ductile iron pipe to go all the way around to
I'm
feed.
glad you said duct line, because you asked for a waiver, which I don't think you'd get, so.
Yeah, we're following what we try to do the best we can. We asked for a waiver on the plastic pipe
Well,
before.
I think you asked for a waiver, not even to submit plans.
So we did, but we understand there's probably a waiver that we're not gonna win on, so, but at least we're trying,
One of many, I would say,
Yes,
based
sir.
on what I read tonight.
I'm sure.
Just once.
Each house will have its own gas stove and connection. And the 10 units will be fed off of the water line, mostly in this direction, and then the 8 units will be fed over here. Under the state plumbing code, if a garage holds 6 or less cars, oil water separator isn't needed and connected to any, well, since it's septic here, it wouldn't need its own trap and then maintenance and backing up because they're only 6-unit garages. We
Do they have to be sprinkler system for the garages? Just the board?
What's the question?
Do the 6-unit garages need to have a sprinkler system, fire suppression system?
Probably not.
Justin, if you could mention about the, what we're doing, what's being proposed for curbing, sidewalks, anything like that?
Ran a curb 6 inches, right?
Yeah, but there's-
Some-
Yes,
Some-
we do have some, we do have some.
on
Definition of some.
on the
At the entrance,
at the entrance
As well as that.
as well as along the front of the in front of the 8 units and the 10 where the concrete sidewalk is, excluding this parking area, will be vertical granite curbing. And then on the opposite side where parking is and not sidewalk will be Cape Cod berm. And then with the sidewalk will be monolithic pour so that it is all in one. And it will really make the area pop look good.
okay.
Yeah.
I think that should be it, Mr. Rose. Any questions on our
Not so
plan?
far.
Not so far?
Not so far. You don't want to show your hand.
No, I figured this would be
We're showing us.
at least 2 or 3 meetings.
There again, these plans are, as some of you may know, the process typically is that you prepare schematic plans and then go through the process and the plans get further developed as you go down the road. But these plans are substantially, I don't want to say complete, there's a lot of testing that still has to be done, but it's pretty substantial at the LIP approval process.
Well, I appreciate that you're rolling the dice here and we'll see what happens.
How would you, any further questions?
Question from the board? No. Mr. Jordan?
I was wondering if there's any provisions for patios or decks or open space area on the property. I do see there's good access to DW Fields Park. It's about a 0.9-mile walk down South Street to get to that park. Is any thoughts on those those needs?
None at this time.
No.
You guys do have sidewalks on the site.
Yes, we have sidewalks on the site, which leads out, but there's no, the units, generally speaking, do not have decks or patios.
Is there potential to have some open grass area above the septic systems?
Yeah, that's what they would be, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Any other questions? No, don't see any. The board have any questions or comments at this time? Council?
Questions on the substance? About where we go from here.
Mr. Board?
Nothing for it.
No.
I was stretching my.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, electronic version of this.
I'm sure we can.
Say that again?
He wants an electronic version.
Yeah, sure.
I'll make sure we get it up on the website.
I'll have Whitey from my office.
Any questions?
And this is
Mr.
still in the draft stage.
Yep.
So,
Mr. Camo, any questions at this time?
No, I think what would happen is this advances. That when it gets a lot of work. he feels.
Sure.
Looking at the reports, showed everything's gonna look at. Impact on the schools, to the traffic study, that type of thing. This is more process to the impacts. Would reveal, and I'm sure people are gonna ask questions about that in the school when they anticipate the difference between singles and 3-bedroom units. what they use.
Mhm.
And then they'll generate some paperwork to show what historically happens. It's pretty typical, I think, of what will end up happening once we get to it.
And just to confirm, I don't think you were here when we went through the clarification. This process that we're doing now, commonly known as a friendly 40B, doesn't take any authority away from your board at all. This is just kind of a review up front, whether the board might like it. And then your board certainly does your due diligence as you always.
Once we get the approval from the state, yes.
Mhm.
I just want to add, Chuck referred to 3 bedrooms, mass housing and the DHCD both require a minimum of 10% of the units to be 3 bedrooms.
Yes, sir.
And now Brian's wrap up.
Yeah, I guess if you don't have any comments, what our process should be from here moving forward.
Yeah, just one last comment in case it sort of got mixed and shuffled. They still have to comply with all the same regulations. So you just mentioned 3 bedrooms requirement. So none of that's off the table just because this is not. They're still gonna have to get that. So in terms of process here, you know, as you guys just touched upon, you know, we're not granting waivers, we're not doing a deep dive here. This is 50,000 feet. And what are you gonna want to see before you give your support to this project? So that's the end game.
Mhm.
So now, this is the first time I've seen it, maybe you've seen this before. So the next step is to start asking these questions, see what you want to know from them, what you want to see from them, to get to that point where you're comfortable signing that letter of support. In terms of the development agreement, it's pretty standard form, there's no magic to it. We just need to know what to attach to.
Mhm.
And again, if this is, so this, when we get to the ZBA phase, we're talking about fundamental feasibility. And that, you know, is something you get to before you can get further down the road for construction. This is even before that. So as you've heard a couple of times tonight, this is actually a little bit further baked than something you'd normally see, and that's true. But I don't want this to sort of bait you into looking into all the engineering details and all that, because we're going to get to all that at the ZBA.
Sure. Is it common to take a vote at the first presentation?
I mean, it depends on what you've seen and what you know. I mean, I would say it's less common to take it at the first meeting. You probably have some questions, you may want to get some feedback, you may want to spend some more time on it. That being said, there's nothing wrong with doing it if you're satisfied and you know everything you need to know. It would be unusual, I suppose, for a board to feel they know everything. They've thoroughly vetted it, heard from everyone they want to hear from, really asked all their questions, be ready to take a vote and sign. Not illegal, but just unusual.
Good.
Well, Steve knows everything.
Sometimes, you know, and again, just because I'm here the first night doesn't mean you haven't seen more than I've been privy to. So you know more of the history, may know more, may see. So I don't want to prejudice any of that.
Any comments?
No, like you said, this is the first we've seen this portion of it, so we're in the same boat as you are.
Okay.
I think in terms of the next steps would be is maybe if you guys have some comments you want to send my way, and I can reach out to Brian and have a conversation to see about maybe setting up another meeting if there's no decision tonight to
Yeah.
get any sort of strategy or questions or anything you want to try to look at.
We look at our calendar, which is pretty busy because of budget, but maybe we can. Oh, what?
Don't remind me.
But maybe we can set the next meeting tonight so that we know that we have so much time to review and come up with comments. Otherwise, this will just continue dragging on and on.
So our next regular meeting obviously is Thursday, and then 2 weeks from that. you're looking to do them at another, like, separate night. I leave it up to you guys if you want to reach out to me tomorrow.
Can we do anything on the tenth?
That's
Next Thursday.
Thursday?
I think it's.
No, that's the night.
No, the ninth is next Thursday. I'm not doing anything on the ninth.
Are we doing anything on the night?
No,
Yeah, I know. Darn.
No, no, well, just
I know.
yeah, I know.
because we can do it at 6 o'clock again, so that town hall's still open and.
Okay.
All right, why don't we,
I also want to make sure
well, I'm sorry.
someone else's schedule is
I forgot.
available.
Between Jay and I, I'm sure we can, but is that a reasonable amount of time for you? I mean, you don't have to
Well, I think so. I mean,
artificially rush the
my-
process.
my concern is that if I say a month from now, we won't do anything until the day before, so
Sure.
why don't we just do the day before now and get it over with?
I like the way you're thinking.
That's fine.
I do have a question when you're done figuring out what day we're gonna meet again.
Actually, still. I'll check with Jay. If you want to do the ninth, we'll figure out. a
Ninth
way.
of Ninth?
Ninth,
Thursday
10th is a
night.
Friday.
Well, if you want to, we'll confirm tomorrow to make sure Jay's there.
Yeah,
I
so,
mean, tentatively, it's in there and we'll just,
yeah, so
confirm.
did you say you had an appointment at night?
I do.
He's in stone.
What
Building
time?
Planning board. I assume it's 7.
So why don't we do 5:30? Can you do 5:30 and,
Do 5:30 and then I can shoot over there.
right? That way we
That way,
can double dip and.
Double billing, yeah.
All available out.
Does that work?
My
Does
office
that
is
work for
parked
you?
right over there,
That
so
work
it's
for
no
you?
problem.
That works for me.
Yeah, 5:30 Thursday, the 10th.
Yeah, 10, whatever day it is.
Selectmen could buy dinner.
They're already together.
November 9th.
Well, they do that.
Yes.
Thursday night at 5:30.
December 9th. Thank you.
Okay.
December 9th.
No, they meet this Thursday.
If there should be anything you need between now and then, Greg, just get a hold of
Yes,
us.
you have our emails, correct?
So what we'll do is any comments or questions, we'll funnel them through Greg. Greg can distribute them. Hopefully get answers back to us in a reasonable amount of time. Hopefully before the meeting, so that we can review the answers or comments and come prepared to have another discussion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just.
Yes, yeah,
before we
please, do. Yes,
One thing I just need to make public is, for full disclosure, I spoke to the State Ethics Commission because I currently rent property from Mr. Campbell, my primary residence. I have filed the proper forms with the town clerk, and the state ethics attorney suggested that I make a public comment, that I can be impartial. I have no financial impact to me whatsoever. I can be impartial on behalf of the board and the residents of town. So I just wanted to make sure that was fully disclosed, but all the proper paperwork to be filed to, so there's no viewing required.
We appreciate that, Mr. Becker. Thank you very much.
There's any other question?
you did,
I did.
you forgot.
No, I didn't. So one of the questions was, the board asked if some of these units are going to be handicap accessible.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. In your narrative, it says that they're going to be handicap adaptable. My 7 years in the planning board, we asked for something to be handicap adaptable. It meant that in the future, if somebody was going to move into that space, you could remove some door frames and then be another frame, and you have wider doors and have the adaptability to make it handicap.
Good.
Are you going to make these handicap adaptable, or are they actual handicap accessible? What's the difference between the two?
Good question. They're basically adaptable. The door openings will accommodate the width of a wheelchair. And if those units, if there is a tenant who has the need, then my understanding under the ADA is that those cabins can come out and would be adjusted so that they would be handicapped.
Mr. Board.
I think I need to address my good counsel, because I know, I should know the answer myself, Tony. Is the MAAB currently requiring a certain number of accessible units in a development of this size?
No.
I don't,
One, I don't think so. No, I have, and Ryan and I have had this discussion several times. And we, and I'll be glad to forward it to everyone, is what is the ADA requirements?
I'm not asking about ADA. I don't enforce ADA. Mass AAB, Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, has their own rules and regulations which apply throughout the Commonwealth.
Yes, I have those. Those are the ones I was.
I'm concerned that they may require accessible units, not adaptable, accessible units. I don't know if there's a limit that they start at, if there's, that is, I should have, I don't have it.
I will
And I
send,
have a question about
I will send that there. It depends whether it's a group 1 or group 2 type building. And it's kind of more than what I really understand. Group 1 building, which this.
it. Yeah, correct. There's
which
two different types.
Right, I think this is a group 1, and the rules are different than a group 2. You're familiar with maybe a little bit, so we did get some information on the requirements, and in fact,
It's been a significant change in the people running AAB, and I've gotten a couple of decisions lately, kind of surprising me.
so the intent is obviously comply with the requirement. And,
Yeah, we plan on making all the first floor units adaptable.
well, what's the difference between adaptable and accessible?
So
I looked in your answer book, isn't it?
Oh. Yeah, the adaptable is just that we can, without doing any major construction, we can make it, we put the grab rails up, everything is for future. You have to, put all the blocking in, get everything, the doors have to be wide enough. If we have a vanity, we take it out, it becomes a wall mount sink. That's how I interpret it, but we figured we'd do that on every floor, all the first floor units.
So if there's offered so many and then there's a need for more, and you have the space you need.
Correct.
And what happens, so there's a 2 process. One is that the affordable units are done through a housing lottery process, where the market rate units are just whatever, there's no lottery for the market rate units. So certainly in the lottery process, one of the applicants is eligible and has that need, then we would do it in the early stages.
Any other question? Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your diligence tonight.
We can keep books for you.
Motion to- which we can-
Oh, yeah.